Hello and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the Chariot, but before we really get into the substance of the video, hit subscribe, hit the bell, like, follow, share, do all of the things. Show me some love and you'll be notified the next time I upload my next video. So you ready? Let's do this. We're on the highway to hell. Okay, so that was probably the wrong song to think of while thinking about the Chariot. But the Chariot, essentially, think about it like the old school car, the old school way of getting around, the old school mobile home for some. And so this card really talks about strength and wisdom, war sometimes, motivation to move forward, overcoming obstacles, hard work, and focus. So here we see, the fool falls in love. He's learned a few things. And now he's really in this moment where he's so close to finishing what he originally set out to do. But he's confused and he has no motivation to press on. He's got no motivation to continue. He's at that very tail edge. Like you've been there before. Like, dear Lord, I have just keep going and going. And when is it gonna finish? When is it gonna finish? Keep going. The reward is almost there. Trust me. But there, I see no light at the end of this tunnel. There is no light. Trust me. There is light. So you got this charioteer that runs in. He's got two horses or two sphinxes on either side of him, one being white and one being black, again representing those polarities. But these polarities, it's very interesting if you notice how he has that like lasso around them, meaning that he can control the polarities, he can bring them together, or he can separate them. In this case, everything that's in this card, whether it be the chariot, the charioteer, the horses, no part of it would be able to work without the other. So in this case, when they work together, group work and focus, things will be able to work the way you want them to. So one of the other symbols that are on the card is the symbol on his chest plate. It looks like a mallet or a gavel. And this is a Masonic symbol representing his control over the starry skies, which is also above him in the canopy. And this gavel is also a representation of control over the self. And he also holds like a wand or a scepter, which means control over the animals, right? That link to the control over the things around him. So in this case, we're going to take a quote from Manly P. Hall here regarding the chariot and the charioteer. The chariot portrays a victorious warrior crowned and riding in a chariot drawn by sphinxes or horses. The starry canopy is held up by 4 white columns and signifies the exalted ones who rides in the chariot of creation. The vehicle itself represents the arcane truth that the 7 planets are the chariots which ride victorious above us. The 4 columns represent the 4 mighty ones who uphold the worlds, represented by the star-strewn drapery. His scepter represents solar energy, and his shoulders are ornated by the lunar crescents, the Urim and the Thummim. The 4 mighty ones can represent the 4 elements. So that was a quote from Manly P. Hall in The Secret Teachings of All Ages. And so when we dig deeper, you're probably going to ask me, well, Jen, who are the mighty ones? And who is this Urim and Thummim? Like, is this an Uma Thurman movie? Is that what we're talking about? Are we talking about Uma Thurman? No. So the 4 mighty ones, like he said, would be either the 4 elements, earth, water, air, fire, or the 4 directions, north, south, east, west. These are the 4 things that the entire world is made upon. They could also be linked to the four horsemen, heralds or messengers of things yet to come, not necessarily in a negative light. It could certainly be in a positive light as well. But there is a more in-depth analysis of who the four mighty ones are, and we can get to that in a different video. Now, Urim and Thummim, if I'm definitely pronouncing those correctly, these traditionally translate into light and perfection. If we take the phrase allegorically, it would mean revelation and truth, or doctrine and truth, and the Catholics would interpret it to mean to teach and to be true. Now, for me, it is a reminder of Odin and his ravens, right? His two ravens that sit next to him. Human and Munim, thought and memory. But, the commonalities. One of the things of interest that I did see in my research is that there are some who correspond the Chariot card with it being a more sun-y related. I know it's going to be difficult for you to understand why it's linked to Cancer when we later on talk about it. We'll get there. But with it having this also sun connotation to the card, one of the gods that can be represented in this card is Helios. He was the Greek Titan who personified the sun, and often was depicted riding on a chariot, specifically a fiery chariot. This could also be linked to Apollo as well, but we're specifically going with Helios for the purposes of this video. Now, the corresponding Hebrew letter for this card would be Chet, and this letter, interestingly enough, is linked to the letter or the number 8. If you technically count the cards and mark the full card as number 1, the Chariot is technically the 8th card in the deck, even though it bears the number 7. So I thought that was pretty interesting to note, the correspondence there. Now, there are a few different meanings for the word / letter Chet, but for the purposes of the reference of this video, we are going with the meaning of fence. But what is a fence? A fence is a structure that protects the house. And remember, through this entire thing, allegorically, through this entire story, through the Kabbalah, we have been building a house, building a structure for which material things can emerge and give shape and take shape in and around and about. But this also lays way to the fact that even though that there are layers of boundaries, creation can still happen within all of these layers. It's like an ogre, an onion. We've got layers. Okay, I'm done with the jokes for right now. Now, astrologically, the Chariot is linked to Cancer. Remember I told you that? And Cancer is linked to the moon. And this is all a big sign about motherhood and being the mom and everything about the mom and the family. And if we take a deeper look, we can understand why there is some of this moon imagery also represented with all of this sun energy. It's very interesting how so far we've been having a big conversation, all of these cards, about opposites and polarities and the merging of these polarities and how important it is for them to merge. But I am digressing. Remember when I told you one of the first ways a chariot was used was in mobile homes and people nomading their way around the world? Well, here we are, Chariot being a mobile home, and thusly Cancer, the Chariot, a sign of the home and of family. So we have that correspondence there already. Now remember, the Chariot here is adventurous, but he's not adventurous for the sake of having adventure. He's adventurous for purposes like gathering resources or improving quality of one's life. If we look at the glyph of the Cancer symbol, it's in the shape of two claws. Two claws. Defensive little claws. And they have this very big hard shell that very, very hard to penetrate through. Like, you have to be a really good apex predator to get at or through a crab and all of their crab goodness. Now, these claws and the representation of the claws with the Cancer, they're very defensive. They're a defensive way of protecting oneself. And in this case, the charioteer has to be defensive. He's a leader. He's one of the first people in line for battle. And so, thusly, he needs to be protective. He needs to be defensive. He wears a coat of armor, just like the crab, to keep all of his ooey gooiness covered on the inside. And just like our typical toxic masculinity that we would see in today's culture, men are told to be brought up to have that hard, cold exterior. But we know if we get down into that exterior, they're just giant teddy bears. Yeah, same kind of energy here. And they both have to be intuitive by nature in order to not really take things the wrong way and accidentally lash out when it shouldn't be needed to. Yes. Again, Cancer is ruled by the moon, and it is also the ruler of the 4th house. This is where astrologers go to look at everything about motherhood. It's the house that rules over being mom and the family, like we were talking about earlier. And being ruled by the moon also gives it a little bit more of the reflection and inspiration of who we are, and adding that all into the mix as well. Now, there are other correspondences to the Chariot, and we've already gone through some of them. Cancer, the moon, the day Sunday, interestingly enough, the lotus flower, the gemstone amber, and the cypress and olive tree. And intentions that we would use this card for would be a card that we would call upon for strength and for guidance, for a change of focus, for success and transformation. And yes, sometimes we use this for battle and for war. There always has to be the reverse to the positive. The sun to the moon, and all of its splendor as it is represented as a solar card. Remember that there is the imagery of the moon in the card, right? When we take the opposites and force them together so that they work together in unison, in unity, as a whole and not as separates. So I hope this really helped you with your understanding of the Chariot. And I would really like to know this week in the comment section, if it's not too personal, what this card meant for you and how it works in your life or in your day, and your thoughts about the teachings. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Namaste and God bless.